Okay, folks, this is going to be part of our retirement planning series. And what I want to do today is really give you just a conceptual overview of retirement planning. So they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I want to draw you a picture of how I visualize, and if you do a financial plan, kind of shows up looking on the financial plan, what retirement looks like. Most people, having not been trained in financial planning, have a hard time visualizing these, but once we can create a picture, it really makes it easier. So let's say this is you, and this represents time. So the very first phase that we're going to go through is pre-retirement, or what we call the accumulation phase. This is where we're going to be saving money, be putting money away, or as in the case with Social Security, we're going to be earning some credits. Now you do pay for that, but it doesn't reflect the same as if you put savings in a retirement account. There's going to be a point here where we get to a point in time, different for everybody for different reasons, where you're going to say, I'm no longer going to go to work. Well, I still need money though. So where am I going to get this money from? Well, it's going to come from whatever we put away in this phase, then gets distributed in this phase. And this is exactly what we call it, the distribution phase. Okay? So typically, let's talk about this age right here, this date. If you ask most people, they come up with an age 65. Now, the only reason we do is our culture tells us that's the date that you retire. And this actually comes from when Germany, who basically invented the Social Security system, a system where the government would pay you a monthly pension if you worked up into a certain age. And the age they chose was age 65. That was in the late 1800s. Well, by the time we get to the 1930s and we pass what we know as Social Security, they choose age 65. This can vary though, and subsequent adjustments to Social Security have put the full retirement age out to age 67 for many. So, but it doesn't have to be. You could say, hey, I want to retire at age 60, I want to retire at age 62, or maybe I'll keep working longer and I want to retire at 70. So it doesn't really matter where this number lies, and there's all kinds of variables that go into that. So it's not really it's not always the most straightforward answer. But whatever it is for you, it doesn't change the fact that you have some kind of accumulation phase, some kind of distribution phase. Okay, so here's what it ends up looking like. Let me change my color here. Is that we start putting money away, and it starts to grow. Now there's two things that happen. The reason this line gets bigger, okay, is this is how much money we have. So the first one is how much are we putting away? That's the rate of savings. The second thing is how much is the rate of return on the money, and that depends on the type of investment that you use. But essentially most financial plans, when you run them out, look something like this. If you have a good enough period of time to where you're going to reach this goal that says my goal age is age 65, and at that point I'm going to be spending a certain amount of money out of this. And then you see the line start to do something like this. As time goes by, the line starts to decline, and you would have to time it perfectly. Well, you'd have to know the date of your death, which nobody knows. But if in the perfect world, you would end up at zero at the point that you also passed away. Now, that might not be your goal, though. So some people say, well, look, I actually want to be able to leave money to my heirs. So I'm only going to spend a certain amount that gets me where it leaves the money intact so that I can pass something on. Other people say, heck, I don't even need this money because I live frugally or whatever, and we're just going to let this money continue to grow into the future, and I'll pass that along to my heirs. So it really depends on what your choice is. Most people, 99% of the people are going to come up with something that looks like this. Now, what I want to talk about next are these two phases, accumulation phase and distribution phase. Each have variables that you have some control over that will determine the success of this. So, okay, so this is our picture. This is what we're trying to do. Now, let me go and talk about the accumulation phases. So let's go here. I'm going to draw our person again. This is today, wherever we're at. We're going to make a decision to start saving money. This is our accumulation. At some point in the future, you choose the date. Let's say it's age 65. Then we're going to go into our distribution phase. Okay, now, both the accumulation and distribution are predicated on a couple items. So let's talk about those. First one is rate of savings. How much can you put away each month or each year that will eventually be used for later? How much can you save? So this might be, well, it really depends. It depends on what your current income level is, what you choose your lifestyle to be. But let's say somebody saves 10% of their income. And you can imagine that if given the same level of income, well, if you saved 15% of that, you would by default have more money. So the more money you can actually put away, the more money you'll end up with in retirement. So that's the one you can directly control. The second part of that, though, which we feel a bit more out of control, is what kind of rate of return. What kind of rate of return can we expect? And this comes from how we're going to invest. How we invest. So each investment that we have a choice has an expected rate of return. So it could be, hey, we're going to keep our money in the bank in cash. Well, that has an expected rate of return. Hey, we're going to choose bonds. Well, that has an expected rate of return. Hey, we'd like to go into real estate. That has an expected rate of return. Stocks. Okay? So each one has you can't say that bonds and stocks have an expected rate of return that's the same. They don't. At certain times, they could be earning about the same, but that's not really what we expect. We go through certain periods where they each earn differently, but the point is this. As you're moving along this time frame, it's not just how much you save, but how you then invest it, okay? Well, we go over to distribution, excuse me. Let me change my color here. And we actually run into very similar variables. So, rate of spending. And you can imagine, let's say we ended up at this level right here. So our money grew. From here, it got up to this. And now we said, well, we need to spend, or we're going to spend 4.5%. And that 4.5% brings us out to an age before it gets to 0. So 4.5% of whatever we have comes out, gets us to this age. Well, what if we said, well, geez, I actually need more than 4.5%. I need 7%. And now you might get a graph that looks like this. Because you're spending more of the money that's inside of your account, and because you're spending more of it, it's going to deplete in a faster manner. So rate of spending is very important. The second one is during retirement, rate of return. You don't give up your investments once you get to retirement. and you have the same options in retirement as you did out of retirement. So we have to have some kind of rate of return that helps us boost this along without, of course, taking too much risk, because risk, the older we get, we don't like to take risks any longer. So this is really what's happening when we look at retirement planning. So when we put all the variables in, we take your age today, we take how much you have saved, and what kind of rate can we expect to save in the future. On top of that, we say what kind of rate of return can we expect, and the computer comes up with a model that'll look something like this. At a specific date in the future, we know, okay, all savings stops and distribution begins, and then we start this distribution projection down. So I hope that gives you at least a picture of what the conceptual overview of retirement planning is. Of course, we have other videos, retirement planning, savings vehicles, distribution strategies and rates. So those are other videos you can find. So we'll see you next time on the video.